It feels like it's been a while, and it has. It's been 3 weeks. Now, how, you ask? I managed to go 21 plus days without spilling my mediocre subjective opinions on a bunch of pixels in a video game. I don't know. I need it like humans need water, like Joey Gallo needs his strikeouts. We're here! Finally! There's been tons of cards that have dropped in the meantime. From the likes of Ozzie Smith, which surely will be an S tier, from very, very poor cards such as Javier Baez. Who would want that one? As always, let me know what you guys think. Your favorite budget cards, some of your favorite low-key options. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with our rankings? We're going from S tier to penny pinchers, every possible budget, the best cards in MLB The Show 22. Leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you guys are brand damn new. Let's get into it. But first, let's take a minute to talk about Underdog Fantasy, because they have a real special offer for you guys, which you're going to want to make use of. If you use my promo code GOMES, you guys will get a $100 bonus on your first deposit up to $100. I love Underdog Fantasy. It's been so much fun. Got MLB TV. They swindled me with the Father's Day deal. It was $50. They practically tied my hands and made me buy it. So I've been watching a lot of games recently, even shitters like Diamondbacks Royals, I think was the other day. You know what? If you have money on the game and a Modelo, it's actually somewhat enjoyable. So highly recommend, again, you guys use my promo code GOMES. Get yourself a $100 deposit match on your first deposit, and let's have some fun. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the channel this season. And here we are, back on the tier list as always. Couple things, alright, and here we are, back on the tier list. So, to catch up, to fill you in if you're uninformed, S tier, the best of the best. If you are looking to field the best possible team, that's who I think you should have. Tier 1 are a notch below, sometimes really far, sometimes pretty close. But they're also really good options. Tier 2 is probably where, you know, it starts to get a discernible difference into the quality of cards. Tier 3 is, yeah, you should probably start looking for upgrades at maybe entry-level cards if you're just starting. And then Penny Pincher. This is strictly reserved for cheap cards that are decent, that can get you going, that can get the job done. You're not going to see a card at Penny Pincher. They're reserved for 10K and lower. S-tier catchers, Joe Random. Your created player, I still think, is the best possible spot for it. And yes, it's not a huge accomplishment to say your cap is better than this card. No, it doesn't mean the content is shitty. It means your opinion is. New catcher, Mike Piazza. Anytime you see an asterisk, that refers to how much I think the card is going to be worth at the end of the program, at the end of the ranked seasons, so on and so forth. I think Piazza and all of those sizzling summer cards are going to be about 25K. And him and Mauer I have on the same tier. I'm going to rank righties a little bit higher right now because so many lefties. We're getting Chris Sale on Wednesday for the POTM program. Fernando Maney is running wild on us, brother. So many lefties in the game. Randy, Glavin. So righties, that's one reason I have Piazza a little bit above, but Mauer's great. Future star catchers, they might as well all have the same name, Joe Josin or some shit, because they all have the same stats. I will mention MJ Melendez there, does have third base and now right field, or left field, I believe, as a secondary. Posada and Adley, they're both pretty solid switch hitters. You know, hit both sides pretty well. Adley's up to 90K again, which isn't great. You do have the new Jimmy Fox. I just don't think he's a good enough hitter to really warrant the abhorrent fielding behind the dish. The guy has maybe like a 1 of 18 chance of blocking the ball. I prefer you to at least have more than 85 power if I'm going to make that sacrifice. It's like having Gary Sanchez if he had to go up and bunt every single time. I don't want it. So we have a couple others. Kyle Farmer is one I love. The new Ivan Rodriguez is right there. See a couple other ones. Gary Sanchez, speak of the devil, and Mitch Garver at 0 Stubs. They're decent, but they cannot hit righties. Again, no, there is a difference between playing on Hall of Fame, Legend, All-Star. All of those have different needs. Contact is significantly more required on Legend than it would be on All-Star, and we'll talk about that for pitchers as well, so I will mention that as we go. Frank Thomas, I think, is the best, especially in the lefty meta, and I do think there's a bit of a gap between Carlos Delgado. I've been using Carlos a little bit lately, and that power against lefties, you will get perfect fly ball outs with it. Jared Walsh is close, but he's going to be on tier 1. Above Ortiz, he's 40 more speed. If Ortiz hits the ball, it's either over the fence or a single. You can't ask for too much more. The Tolia and the Carlos Santana. I wasn't huge on this card originally. He's pretty much neck and neck with Tolia. Which is pretty cool. We have Nick Prado, who I'm a bigger fan than I thought of. I did use him. I really enjoy the swing. We have Pete Alonso, who's pretty good. You'll start to see like the Rizzo and the Prince Fielders start to drop. I want Goldschmidt to get his deserved versus righty splits. Otherwise, he could be very good towards the higher tier 2 here. But otherwise, you have a bunch of jobbers and guys that you probably don't really want to use. The exception of Jock Peterson. He's still one of the best bench bats going. Vlad is usable again. He's pretty cheap now too, about 8K in that range. So if you want to give him a shot again, that is an option. Otherwise, a good amount of value here. A lot of free cards at first base that'll pack in the attributes. Brand new Javier Baez. I think we have a brand new S tier card. I do put him a notch above Chase Utley. They're very close. They're very similar, which is why I can't have one on a different tier. Foskew's down to tier 1. Been playing a lot of Hall of Fame recently. The contact against righties bites me. I have him P3, but he still only has 88. The PCI, I can only imagine on Legend, looks like me after I get out of the pool, if you know what I mean. It really humbles a man once you see that. But Foskew's still great. Utley, really good too. I just think Javier Baez has the slight edge. Mookie Betts, still good. You'll notice Ketel Marte, we'll see him at the shortstop tier from here on out. Vidal Brujan, pretty good. The Jake Berger for versus lefties on the bench that can play middle infield is fan-fucking-tastic. Joe Morgan still is one of the worst value cards in the game for what he brings you. Then a couple other decent cards. Second base, I think there's a pretty clear couple of options right there for you that don't go for too much Stubs. Again, whenever we see these big 30-plus diamond programs, you're going to notice that. So 3B, here's where it really gets interesting. George Brett is on a tier of his own. Devers, I love the card. I think he's great, but he's not on Devers' tier. But I do think he stands alone above a guy like Brett Beatty. And honestly, words cannot describe how disappointed a Rays fan like myself was when I saw how mid Longoria was, sadly. I do want to highlight Eddie Escobar here. He is really good for the value. If you don't want to take the time out to grind for Rafi, Eddie Escobar is a damn good card. Pujols is still rising. He's still a damn good card for what he is. The Gio Urshela practically is nuts. I do think he's better than Arelvis Martinez, who's a 95, and Gio's a 90. Lord knows how they managed to even pack in those attributes on that card. It is a technical marvel, something that will be studied for years upon. So a couple other good cards there. A lot in tier 2 that I think the majority of people are going to get. You'll notice a lot tier 3's cards, the average player, they're quite above. So let's move on to shortstop. Now there's a lot of them, and Ketel Marte, again, as far as secondary positions go, I usually rank them as far as where I would put them. But you also have guys like Honus Wagner that play every fucking position. If you ask nicely, got on your knees and beg, I'm sure he'd pitch. So Ketel Marte, he's going to be a shortstop, and he's the number 1, in my opinion. A flurry of future star shortstops at tier 1. Jorge Polanco, at this point, I don't know how much I give a shit about defense. I've had too many times I use Mike Schmidt, more like Mike shit in the field. I swear to God, he can't even make the routine plays that someone with worse fielding can. Go figure, with MLB The Show 22 working as intended, no doubt. There's the Michael Young, who's pretty good. Again, ranked righties a little bit higher right here. There's so many shortstops. Again, these can play different areas too. Tatis moved up to tier 2 for that reason. The same thing with Polanco. A couple other ones. The Taylor Walls at tier 3 isn't awful. The Corey Seager miraculously still holds a ton of value. And the Ketel Marte, let's just talk about how much he manages to continue. He is inevitable. He will not be stopped. He continues to be at the top of these lists, and it's been like 2 months since they dropped him. Insane. Babe Ruth. I'm guessing like 220k is kind of where this collection is going to bottom out once you get those Takashi cards from the Sizzling Summer program down to about 25k. It's a lot of words to say a few things. Clemente is still very good. He practically owns the title of Mr. Hard Hit Lineout. 125 power, 125 contact, 80 power, spells, sad, Gomer. I like the card. It's frustrating. It is not too fun at times to use. The Soriano, I think, is quite good. You could play him in center field as well. The Castellanos, good lord. You take a fielding hit, but he has 65 fielding out of the box. Just pretty damn good. A lot of new corner outfielders. You'll see Vlad and Musial. This is how I would rank them personally. Musial's good, lacks a little on the power. Probably more of a 1B. Babe has a little bit more speed than him, but I think staying 52 out of the box is usable at the corners. Again, I play at Franco Park, which is like 325, 330 to the poles. You don't have too much distance to run. You don't have to be Usain Bolt. You don't have to be a... You don't have to be a long-distance runner. As long as you don't get tired out after 5 seconds of running, you're good. You're good to go. Vlad's pretty decent. Lacks a little power against lefties, which I'm not a huge fan of. George Valera is quite good. Big fan of this card. Kirk Gibson, Reggie Jackson. The Jay Buhner. Not actually too bad. You know, he lacks contact right, but if you're playing on All-Star difficulty, pretty good. Same thing I would say with Curtis Granderson. Again, I don't recommend using these cards on Hall of Fame or above unless you have a pain kink, but for All-Star difficulty, they do a damn decent job. Judge, oh my god, Gomer, Yankee hater, huh? No, the guy has like 14 contact against lefties. Ton of value here at Penny Pincher. The Encarnacion, the Riley Green, the Eloy Jimenez. You know, none of them can run faster than... none of them could run a 40-yard dash quicker than 10 seconds, but hey... they hit the ball well, so they do their job. A lot of guys on Tier 2. Again, the Ralph Kiner's pretty good. So many options. Corner outfield is very easy to fill, but center field isn't quite. I think Trout is still the best, although there is times like today where he does not get a, or yesterday, I believe, he didn't get an inside edge boost. So out of the box, if you have him parallel 5, he only had 89 contact against right, which isn't great, especially on Hall of Fame difficulty. I had a bit of trouble with that, but I still think he's better than Springer, better than anybody else here. Honus Wagner, I'm sad to say, is Tier 2, and that's kind of being nice. I don't know how exactly this card is so bad for a 96 overall. Cattell blows him out of the water. Austin Martin takes a shit on this card. He's just not great, but for the value is decent. Acuna went down in overall in the roster update. Not quite as usable. Springer's pretty good. Yoki Cespedes, I like his swing a lot. Pete Crow, I'm a believer. You guys turned me on to him. And, you know, Mickey Mantle, still there. A couple future star cards. The center field spot and shortstop, I think we need a really god-tier card coming in soon. So maybe we'll see that. Well, no, because POTM, if it's Jordan, he certainly isn't going to be playing center field, I'll tell you that. Moving on to the pitchers, the most controversial part of the video. My starting 5 here is Randy Johnson, in no particular order except Randy Johnson. Then we go with Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, Chris Sale, who's coming on Wednesday again, and the new Fernando Valenzuela. That is my S tier. That would be my ideal starting 5. Fernando Valenzuela and Chris Sale, they're 4-pitch guys. They're better on higher difficulties. Yeah, you might get beat up a little bit using Fernando on All-Star. That will happen. But as you get higher, he gets better. Tier 1 again, DK's leading things off there. We have the new Yuri Perez, sandwiched between Corbin Burns, who I still think is very effective. I like him because he's very pick up and play. You know, I try to have to balance these for guys who play casually and guys that play competitively, and myself somewhere in the middle. He's very easy to use. Sinker cutter combo with good accuracy. Yuri Perez pretty decent. Bobby Miller can't hit the broadside of a barn. Well, if that's the case, I don't know what to say about Bob Feller. Fuck. Other good cards here on Tier 1. Tier 2, the Tarek Skubal, I think, is pretty decent. The Jared Weaver, actually, in Tier 1, I want to mention him. He's pretty damn good. A lot of options here as we go. The brand new Brandon Webb, I don't think is very good. The DeGrom tier 3 for him. A lot of Stubs for, you'll see tier 2. A lot of these cards would go for about 10K. There's a ton of options for pitcher, and the best ones tend to be cheaper, funny enough. If you fielded a team full of DK, Corbin, Bobby Miller, Jared Weaver, and Roy Halladay, that's pretty damn good. Fernando Valenzuela's going to get cheap there as well. So that's how I would do the pitches, but of course I really want to hear you guys' opinion on that one. For right-handed relievers, the new Raleigh fingers I'm going to put as the best, but I do think that D. Will and the Kenley Jansen are kind of close. It's how I would rank them respectfully. I do think S tier here marks guys that you have to have on your bullpen if you're looking for the best. The Gagne's pretty good. He's decent. I think you have to really know how to use him to master him. He's not quite as pick-up-and-play as a guy like maybe Kenley Jansen or Steve Cishek for sure, but he can be really good if you master him. A couple other cards here. Joan Duran is going to be in tier 2. I think he's pretty good, but the tier 1 is also pretty damn good. These top 3 guys I like a lot. Trevor Hoffman, I'm always just okay with. It depends the player. Some of them are patient. They have the time to wait on the changeups. Others don't, and they look like a fucking fool. So it depends on who you get. And a couple other cards in tier 3 and penny pincher here. The new Seth Lugo I think is pretty decent despite no sinker. Sad. But that's how I would rank righty relievers. Finally, lefty relievers. It is copy-paste from last time because they have not revealed another new diamond left-handed reliever in 3 weeks. Aaron Loup still on tier 1 despite being a silver card. Josh Hader S tier in my opinion. It's like a fine wine. He gets better with age. Hard to see too much movement here when we haven't got any brand new cards, but my ranking pretty much remains consistent, and that's going to do it. Every card in the game currently ranked after the brand new updates that we had within the last 3 weeks. And there's more to come. POTM on Wednesday, like I said. All-Star program coming in a few weeks. So expect Gomer to be back pretty soon with another tier list. But let me know in the comments section what you guys think as far as these rankings go. And yeah, if you guys did enjoy, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys have a great day. There comes out EE.